Attention, everybody who wants to get a good person elected to be President of the United States. If you are working hard to get a good person elected president, trying to persuade other people to vote for so and so instead of so and such, I'd like to suggest to you that you should consider what the cause and effect is that results in improvements, progressive reforms being implemented in the history of the United States. So I've written about how the New Deal, FDR's famous New Deal, got implemented and the reason why it got implemented. And you can read in gory detail the activity of the American working class in the 20s and 30s that forced the ruling class to implement the New Deal, that made the ruling class fear what would happen if they did not implement the New Deal. Specifically, they feared revolution, imminent revolution. The more you know about the actual history of the 20s and 30s, the more you would realize that it was indeed imminent revolution that the ruling class feared. The National Guard was repeatedly being called in to suppress extremely militant labor strikes, oftentimes general strikes in a whole region. The National Guard was repeatedly being given orders to shoot to kill. This was serious fear that the ruling class had. And what they decided that they had to do, and of course FDR was instrumental in getting them to, and persuading them to see that this was the case, they decided that they need to do something to persuade the American working class that revolution was not necessary. And so they implemented the New Deal. The reason we have Social Security today for us or our parents, the reason we have unemployment compensation, the reason that it's legal to form a labor union, these are the main things that persist from the New Deal, is because there was a revolutionary movement in the 20s and 30s, implicitly revolutionary sometimes, and even sometimes explicitly revolutionary. And it scared the hell out of the ruling class. Now, you might think, well, the reason we got the New Deal is because fortunately we elected, or our grandparents elected, this wonderful man FDR as president. But no, it could have been anybody in the Oval Office, and the ruling class would have been faced with the same decision to have to implement something. It might not have been called the New Deal. It could have been called something different. But they were going to have to do something like the New Deal to avoid revolution, and it didn't require or depend upon having a particular person like FDR in the Oval Office. Now think about how the cause and effect works. In 1964, we got the Civil Rights Act. Well, that was a huge improvement because it basically abolished Jim Crow, the racist laws. But do you think that it happened because, we elected a new Congress with members of Congress who were not racist like the old members? No, that's not what caused it to happen. The Congress that enacted the Civil Rights Act was made up of the very same racist politicians who in previous years would never have dreamed of abolishing Jim Crow. What made them decide to abolish Jim Crow was fear of what would happen if they did not, namely the growing revolutionary movement that the civil rights movement was building. Martin Luther King was actually becoming more and more of a revolutionary, talking about class, not just race. The ruling class knew this. They saw it, and they were afraid. And indeed, they assassinated Martin Luther King, as even a civil trial jury stated that the government did that. So instead of focusing attention on trying to get this or that person elected president, what we need to do is focus our attention on building the movement that will frighten the hell out of the ruling class and make them afraid of what will happen if they don't grant the kind of progressive forms that we all want. And I urge you to look at the articles I've written with the URLs provided at the bottom of this YouTube to see about how we can do that. Thank you.